Good morning. It's December 24th, 2018. It is a Monday morning. It is Christmas Eve. Let's get the formalities out of the way. I had a bit of insomnia last night, so I let myself sleep in a bit today. Also, other news that I may talk about tomorrow means that I can definitely take the 26th off. I could probably take either today or tomorrow off as well, but I'm actually kind of curious to see how the driving's going to be. Pressure's off a bit, that's fine. I do want to note for the record, on a couple of occasions I've been feeling a little irritable, just mostly at riders and whatnot, but it passes, it goes. Irritability is one of those signs that I definitely know could mean something or could mean nothing, so who knows. Yeah, that's about it. I just was not sleepy at all last night, and I probably need to do a few things to work on that, but really, truly feeling all right, so we're good there. I had a lot of fun yesterday with on this day in history, so I went to a different site just to get a different perspective, grabbed a few highlights. On Christmas Eve, 2001, Time named their Person of the Year. I'm sure you probably have a good idea who that was if you think back. It was indeed our president's lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, was Time's Man of the Year just a few years back, less than 20. Good choice, Time. Way to go on that. In 1992, on this date, George Herbert Walker Bush pardons Caspar Weinberger. It was for the Iran-Contra affair. For you young people out there, go look it up. I'm not even sure it's really important enough to be in the history books, considering all that went on in the 80s, although it really seemed like a big deal at the time, and there were definitely some shenanigans going on. But I just wanted to say Caspar Weinberger. It's a fun name. Caspar Weinberger. A little more personal note. This one in 1968, December 24th. I'm sure if of the thousands and thousands of people that are listening to me, you already know a little bit about that. It involves a space program, and it was Apollo 8. They were, if memory serves, the first crew to fly around the moon. All right, I don't even need my memory for that. I know they were. And they were the one. It was that mission where they took that amazing picture of the Earth, not in full daylight, but mostly. It's an interesting shape when you look at it. The moon rising over the Earth's surface, and that picture was actually taken from the module in orbit over Earth, because nobody landed, and was one of the first times that we as a planet got to see our entire selves all in one spot in an actual photo. But the actual news item from 1968 for Apollo says that they read from Genesis, which is true. They did do a reading from the Bible. They did not tell anyone first that they were going to do this. I think it's because back then religion was more, you just didn't talk about it as much. It was for the private sphere, not the public sphere. Pardon me. But one of the members felt pretty strongly about it, and they kept it classy. I mean, they were just reading from the Bible on Christmas Day. It was the story of creation. They're out in space. I'm good with it. It was fine. This one, also very close to my heart, involves Star Trek. On this date, Christmas Eve, mind you, 1964, it says here that shooting began on The Cage, which was the original pilot episode for Star Trek. Of course, it was not picked up for that pilot. They had to do a lot of reworking in order to get it in there. But we all ended up seeing it anyway in the 2-part episode in season 1, where they basically re-aired the pilot as a story within a story. But it's just interesting to me that they chose Christmas Eve to actually start shooting. Just struck me as weird. Okay, you guys remember possibly in 1968 when the Beatles, 1969, I'm sorry, Beatles played their last public performance on the rooftop of, I think it was Abbey Road Studios, although it might have been Apple Corps. Let's go ahead and call it Apple Corps. I'll look it up later. But one of the most famous last concerts ever. Gathered a lot of attention, legendary. It happened in the early days of a lot of stuff being filmed. Well, this brings us to 1920, and I saw this and it made me smile. On this date in 1920, Enrico Caruso, let me try that again because it's also a fun name to say. Enrico Caruso gives his last public performance. This would have been like huge. Enrico Caruso, for an opera singer, was a household name. He was one of the earliest people to record onto records and be sold. He was like the first recorded era superstar. So, along with like Rudy Valentino, was one of the very first movie stars. So his last public performance, probably for that generation, would be remembered a lot like the Beatles' last performance for people, well, 45, almost 50 years later. Speaking of recording, on this date in 1877, Thomas Edison files for a patent for the phonograph. I don't know if this is a flat disc phonograph. I don't think he ever actually worked with that. I think we're talking about his cylinders, the wax cylinders that could be recorded on and then played back. The sound quality was better than we think, apparently. Part of it's the playback equipment and deterioration of the original recordings, but if you get one of their devices today and record it, it's a lot cleaner than we think it is. But Christmas Eve, he filed a patent. In 1814, on Christmas Eve, the Treaty of Ghent was signed, ending the War of 1812, which brings me to the naming of historical events. They didn't call it the War of 1812 when it was happening. Probably not. Just like World War I wasn't known as World War I until much later. The 100 Years' War wasn't called that until much later. The 30 Years' War, etc. Why we call it the War of 1812, I'm not sure, because obviously it extended a bit farther than that. We're past 1812, 1813, and into 1814 before this thing ends, towards the end of the year at that, too. It reminds me of the 100 Years' War, which I think was actually a series of conflicts going on for like 116, 117 years. Historians just are not the greatest namers. See Ethelred the Unready for that. Okay, and finally, on this day in 1877, James Cook discovered the Christmas Island, or Christmas Island, I guess it should be called. James Cook was kind of the guy in the Pacific. I know for sure he also discovered the Sandwich Islands, which we went on to now refer to as Hawaii, and he may have also discovered the Easter Islands. I wonder what date that was. And I'm also fairly certain he had something to do with early explorations or even discoveries of like Australia. I'd have to look into that. But Cook was an interesting character. One of the missions that he led, if memory serves, was for a transit of Venus, I think. I'd have to go back and double check all that history. But anyway, thank you for letting me ramble. I enjoy this. I may try a few different things, but as I said yesterday, I'm just trying to get comfortable in front of the camera and get used to doing this. So anyway, thank you so much for watching me mostly me, except I'm not actually watching it, seen any of them yet. I will do so when I feel fit. I'll talk to me tomorrow. Bye-bye.